Hi, Filmatics. Thanks for tuning in. Today we have a special guest. We have Jerry Bader. He is a fantastic writer and author of amazing novels and even graphic comic books and children's books. Jerry, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, we're so happy to have you, Jerry. A writer like myself, and just so happy. And I want everyone to know, where are you recording live today from?
I live just in a suburb of Toronto, Canada. So we're quite a ways away from you guys in LA.
Oh, and is it cold in Canada right now? Because
It's cold.
It's
Yeah,
cold.
it's cold. There's winter. There's snow on the ground. Sure. Yes.
Oh my gosh, there's snow in the ground, and I heard we're really having a bad winter everywhere. But California in February right now, we are February 25th recording live. You might be in a couple months, like your episode might be going out in August or September, but we have like warm weather here, so I'm excited about that because everyone likes summer weather. But anyhow, we want to talk about one of your favorite films growing up as a kid. Do you have one?
Well, growing up as a kid, my thing was the radio, and I used to fall asleep listening to the radio. Used to listen to the Toronto Maple Leaf baseball games, which were actually quite interesting because I found out when I became an adult that they wouldn't be actually at the baseball games. They would be announcing these things in a radio control room, and they'd be getting ticker tape as to what was happening in the baseball game, and they faked the whole thing. But I also used to listen to the radio plays like Johnny Dollar, who was an insurance investigator, Gunsmoke. These were the radio versions. And I was always fascinated by just lying in bed listening to these radio plays because, it taught me, I think, to kind of learn how to paint a picture with words.
Amazing. And so you listened to the radios in the 1940s, like Johnny Dollar and Gunsmoke. Gunsmoke was a radio show. And
oh yeah, don't make me older than I am. Okay, it was in the 50s. Okay, it was the tail end of the radio plays, and they were probably rebroadcast. And I would get them, on CKY in Toronto, which I don't think exists anymore. But and yeah, Johnny Dollar was a famous radio show in the 40s, and Gunsmoke, yes, was on the radio before it was on television, and it was terrific. It was actually better than the television show, but.
And they always say everything comes around again. And right now, podcast radio shows they're like incredible. And I myself produce one called, our podcast channel is Thrilling Stories. And we just produced Identity Theft, which is a detective series. So these are coming back, and it's amazing, right?
Oh, that's terrific, because I used to be in the video web commercial business, and I got my start in writing these web commercials, and we would bring actors in and we would film them. One of my sons is a videographer. The other one is a sound design guy, and we used to do these web commercials, and I would do the writing and casting and producing. And it brought me back to the days of radio. And I tried to push in the early days of the internet voiceover, to add voiceover to people's websites. And, people were more inclined to go with the kind of video aspect of things. But voice is extremely important. And I think that's why in my books, dialogue has become kind of my thing. And that's the thing I enjoy most is writing the dialogue.
Fantastic. And you also was inspired by the voice delivery and writings of Rod Serling on the Twilight Zone, right?
Oh, yes. I mean, Rod's the delivery, every Twilight Zone of the original Twilight Zone Rod Serling would kind of deliver the promo, and even the introduction was fabulous. It was poetry. It truly was. And you add that to his great voice and his kind of presence and his cadence. I mean, these are things that as a writer that, all writers need to learn how to deal with kind of cadence and language and words. And I think, that's one of the reasons that I think I got fascinated by writing.
Wonderful. And I highly recommend Joel Gibbs. He's our introduction. He's our Rod Sterling on identity theft on Thrilling Stories podcast. He does our intros and outros. He does 1,000 voices. He's a true professional voiceover actor. So, we love the Joel Gibbs. So, but I'm going to continue and because I love Criterion films, and I want to know, do you have a favorite one that inspired you to go on your journey to be a writer?
Well, for when I was young, I never understood Humphrey Bogart. I didn't get it. And until I started writing, I finally started watching these old 1940s movies. And in fact, Saturday night here in the Turner Classic station, they run something called Noir Alley. And they run these old noir movies. And that's something that I've always been fascinated by, was the noir genre. I mean, my favorite movies are actually The Maltese Falcon and The Third Man.
Great films. The Maltese Falcon and The Third Man. I mean, spectacular films. I love those films too. Great shape, great taste.
Well, and what I understood after watching these movies, and I kind of focus in on scenes, and there is a scene in The Maltese Falcon where Humphrey Bogart meets Sidney Greenstreet, and there is this dialogue between the two, which is just tremendous. He says things like, are you a man who likes to talk? And Humphrey Bogart says he does, and he says, I like talking to a man who likes to talk. I mean, the patter, it's not realistic in a sense of the kind of the way people talk, but it's fabulous to listen to, and I think that's really what got me started. And that's the thing I enjoy the most. People like Tarantino know how to write dialogue. These guys are masters at it.
Yeah, and maybe it wasn't natural dialogue that you ever heard someone say, but clever dialogue in movies makes it super fantastic and delicious to watch and listen to. So I can't wait to read some of your novels and read some of your scripts. I'm so excited. And so is there some of your can you share one of your favorite directors and a film shot from a movie that you love?
Sure. Well, in terms of directors, I would say, Tarantino and Guy Ritchie. Tarantino, I mean, he's a writer. Tarantino, I would say that even before being a director, producer, he's a writer. I mean, he wrote True Romance. There's a scene in True Romance with Christopher Walken, is a gangster, and he basically shoots. Oh, what's the name of the guy that was in Easy Rider? I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But there's the dialogue between the two of them are tremendous. And there is a movie from the 40s called The Huckster.
You were talking. Wait, Easy Rider had Dennis Hopper, Peter Fonda.
Dennis Hopper. That's right.
And Jack Nicholson. Lots of people.
And Christopher Walken basically murders Dennis Hopper. But the dialogue between them is just fabulous. I mean, that's Tarantino's thing. The same thing with Pulp Fiction, the scene with
God bless his soul, because I think we lost Christopher Walken this year, and I'm gonna forever go Eggplant. I mean, and him dancing. So it's so sad when we lose people. But so I didn't mean to interrupt, but I just just remember, I think he passed away this year. So hearts go out.
Really?
Yeah. So everyone stay warm and healthy, please. And Yeah. So you were talking about Guy Ritchie's Snatch. I love that film. That was so awesome.
Oh, that was a tremendous film, and I think I just watched. I think it was called The Gentleman, which is a Guy Ritchie movie, and I mean, you didn't have to tell me that it was a Guy Ritchie movie. All I had to do was listen to it, and I could tell by the way it was put together, the dialogue, everything that that was a Guy Ritchie movie. It's just these guys have a signature kind of way of doing things. But one of the scenes that I find fascinating, and that your listeners might find fascinating, that they probably have never seen, from an old movie called The Huckster, starring Clark Gable and Sidney Greenstreet. And it's not a particularly good movie, quite frankly, but there is a scene with Adolphe Menjou, Clark Gable, and Sidney Greenstreet, where they run an advertising agency, and Sidney Greenstreet is the client. And he comes in and he delivers one of the most tremendous speeches I have ever heard on cinema. It is tremendous as a piece of filmmaking. He walks in, he sits down amongst all these flunkies around the boardroom table, and he spits right into the middle of the boardroom table. Then he takes a pitcher of water and he splashes it all over what he just did, and he tells them, what you saw was disgusting, but you'll never forget it. And then he goes into a big long harangue about his product, which is soap, beauty soap. And he explains to these guys, the way to sell beauty soap is to keep repeating beauty soap, beauty soap, beauty soap. That's how you get remembered. And in fact, I actually wrote a book on marketing called What's the Big Idea? And basically, it's a book about how to get your big idea. And that's one of the things we talk about, is if people don't remember you, then, they're not going to care about your product. And I think a lot of the lessons that I learned in marketing and doing commercials for people helped me in, writing fiction and biographies and screenplays and that sort of thing.
Great. Yeah. And so I like, his name was Sidney Greenstreet. I like that character's name too, because I always ask people, did they have a funny line from a movie, or what's their favorite character's name? So I really like Sidney Greenstreet.
Sidney Greenstreet was the actor.
Oh, that's his actual name? Well, it could be like a movie name, We all have avatar names.
Yeah, well, he was the actor.
But, okay. Yeah. You're like, Marilyn, don't you know? But I did study all the old movies because I worked for Earl Winkler, the producer of Rocky, and he had a library back then, VHS tapes. So I just started learning about all of them while I worked for him, because he had all those films, and I never had money to pay for subscription to watch movies. So he had all those movies. I was like, woohoo! And then I kind of fell in love with all the black and white films. So you actually you wrote articles, you wrote books on marketing. What's the big idea? Brand Universe. Then you did your concept of hybrid graphic novels, which led to novels in the neo-noir style, which I love, love, love. We're going to have to talk about doing a podcast and doing some film noir radio shows with you. I would love to do that with you.
Oh, sure. Me too. That would be great.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah.
You have to understand, when I say hybrid graphic novels, it might require some explanation, because I don't know if most people would understand what I'm talking about. The whole idea of me getting into the writing aspect was to have these things turned into either television series or feature films. I mean, that's my goal. And so I said, well, let's start with something like a graphic novel. So I went to the store and I bought Sin City. And I started, I suppose, reading it. And I'm not reading it. I'm looking at pictures. There's nothing here. There is no writing, to speak of. I mean, maybe somebody's going to get mad at me for saying that, but I mean, I'm a writer, okay? And so I said, no, there's got to be a better way. So, and since I've always been interested in art, at one point in my life, I actually owned an art gallery. And I decided that, okay, I'm going to write basically a screenplay. And then I'm going to hire an artist who's going to do elaborate storyboards in a kind of graphic novel style. And I'm going to put the screenplay on one side of the page, and I'm going to put basically the graphic novel storyboards on the other side of the page. And that way, you'll be able to visualize the words that I'm giving you. So you can read it, and you can look at the pictures as well. And I thought this was a great way to pitch this stuff as, you know, a television show or a movie. Well, recently I started working with Thunderball Films in the Dominican Republic with Dominic Domino. And he showed this to some of the actors that we're thinking of hiring for the method, and they loved it. They looked at it and they said, oh man, I can visualize this character. I can see how they look, how they act, how they dress, you know, what their manner is, you know, what the environment looks like, what the scenes are, and they loved the idea. And so, you know, I think it was a little bit innovative, I guess. It was a little bit different, and I wrote a bunch of those, and we are turning them into a detective series about a male and female detective called Grissendine. And it starts off actually with a story called The Method, which is about an actor who does impressions. And that goes back to my kind of love affair with voiceover and, voice acting.
Oh, nice. I could do a high-pitched SpongeBob girl voice. Hello, everybody. How you doing?
Well, this is actually a lot of people kind of resist stories about, you know, like the actors or movies or television. You know, I don't think the television industry likes stories about the television industry. It's really more of a murder mystery, and he gets involved. He gets into a car accident, and when he wakes up with amnesia, and everybody thinks he's somebody else. And because he's a method actor, that's where the name comes from. He starts playing the part that people think he is, and or people expect who he is, and it's an interesting story, and like I say, we're working on getting funding for it now, and we're putting together the series through a couple of different books that I wrote.
Oh, that's fabulous. So you're in Canada. Is that how you started on your path to writing? Were you always a writer, or what age did you start writing? Can you tell us, how you started?
Sure. Well, I guess this is really my second career. I was in business for many years, and then we sold that business. We were in a photographic business. I sold the business. And then I got into the kind of website design, and when video became part of, the website scene, we started doing web videos and commercials. And I was the one responsible for writing the commercials. And when I talked to clients, we had clients like, we have a dating site in Australia, and we had a phone company in England. We had a woman in the States who sold watering tanks for industrial watering. And when I talked to these people, what I found was they had a very difficult time explaining what their business was and why anybody should care. And so it was up to me as a writer to be able to get down in 2 to 3 minutes basically why anybody should care about their product. And what it boils down to is kind of the emotion, the emotional target. And if you read something like Save the Cat, where he talks about, the different kinds of movies, finding the golden fleece and that sort of thing, I try to explain to clients that, you have to do the same thing in your commercial. And that's really what Brand Universe was all about. It was really about creating your own brand universe. And you can almost say anything you want within that brand, within that universe, as long as you stay within the rules of that universe. I mean, that's really what all those Marvel and DC things are all about. They're ridiculous on the face of it. They're just nonsense. However, they have rules, and those universes have rules. And as long as you stick by those rules, you can present anything and people will buy it.
I love that. And so you, gosh, you sold your business and started doing what you love. I love that. And you have so much content. And I want to make sure that our listeners can go check out some of your books on Amazon, because they're at Amazon, right? Most of your stuff's on Amazon. Do you have a
Yes.
website as well, Jerry?
Yes, I have both. All the books are on Amazon. You just, you can do a search for amazon.com/Jerry Bader.
That's JerryBader, Jerry Bader. And I want to list some so that they can hear, because you're coming from Canada and your volume's a little bit on the low side. So I just want to make sure they can hear your books and stories. So you're working on with Thunderball Films. I love the title, on a detective series called The Method. And then based on two books, Beating the System and The Fixer. And you
hold on. Beating the System and the Fixer, that's another project. That Beating the System is a different project that we are currently pitching to a number of different studios. It is about a legendary jockey who fixed horse races, and these are true to life. These are true stories based on this character's life. He happens to be a friend of mine, and he is a fabulous storyteller. And when we started hearing all his stories, I was asked to turn them into a book. He lives in a small town called Crystal Beach, and he met my brother. And when my brother heard the stories, he thought they were fantastic, and he called me up and he said, "Jerry, I want you to listen to these stories because I want to know if you can do anything with them." And I listened to him and I said, "Yeah, we got a television show here." So first thing I did was I wrote The Fixer, which was the first book about him, and then I wrote Beating the System, which is the second book about him. They're both on Amazon, and they are they're pretty good and they're fascinating. If you want to know what horse racing is really like, if you want to find out about the underbelly and the corrupt side of horse racing, and if you want to know what a jockey's life is really like, you've got to read these books.
Yeah. So that was Beating the System and The Fixer. And then you've written hubris graphic novels, script biographies, children books. And so I want to just get some of these out there so they can, how do you say this? The comeuppance? The comeuppance?
The comeuppance. The comeuppance. And it is another one of the hybrid graphic novels. What I am working on, what I have been working on most recently is a spy series.
Oh, a spy series. I love it.
Deception was the first book. Delusion was the second book. Dilemma was the third book. And I'm just editing the fourth book in the series, which is called Diversion. It is about a half British, half Canadian SIS agent, that's MI6. And he's also interested in abstract expressionism, and he has a very loose grasp on reality. I actually read an article written by a famous spy novelist who was an actual MI6 spy at one time in his early career. And he talked about how spies often lose track of what's real and what's not. So that gave me the idea to start writing these books about, he goes by one name, his name is Harry, because all the great spies from Harry Palmer and the Ipcrest file and down through the ages, they all seem to be named Harry. So I named my guy Harry too. And
oh, I can't wait to read it. Deception, Delusion, Dilemma, and what was the fourth one you said?
The fourth one, which I haven't published yet, is going to be called Diversion.
Oh, they're all D's. The Deception, Delusion, Dilemma, and Diversion.
They all start with one word, and they all start with D. And
I love that.
Yeah, and I tried something different when I wrote these. I wrote them mostly in the first person. So it's almost like he's talking to you as his handler. He's basically reporting to you as to what's going on in the particular circumstance. And he basically, tells you this, he's basically relating the story to you, and then it cuts to the dialogue, and you basically are in his head throughout the whole thing, which makes it a little bit different than some of the other stuff I've done.
Yeah, and let me just read some more so they can go up and find some. The Coffin Corner, Grist for the Mill, The Black Crane, The Outlaw Rider, Dead End, Palermo, Stone Cold, The Aussie Switch, Ballad of Bullets, Noir, No 1 and 2, Organized Crime Queens, How Cocktails Got Their Names. I'm reading that book, and I'm sure all of my listeners are reading How Cocktails Got Their Names. Love it. Cowboys, Lawmen, and Outlaws. You have children's books, Two Dragons Named Shoe, The Town That Didn't Speak, The Criminal McBride, The Bad Puppeteer, Mr. Bumbershoot, The Umbrella Man, and The Ninth Ending, all available at Amazon and most on Apple. So any final words on those, Jerry?
Well, actually, The Outlaw Rider, Stone Cold, The Aussie Switch, that series of books is also about horse racing, but in this case, it is about a female jockey that gets involved in a Chinese triad in Los Angeles, and it's all about gambling, and it's about a lot of different things, and it travels all over the world, and goes to Sicily, Palermo in Sicily, Palermo in Argentina. That's a nice series of books as well. Noir 1 and Noir 2, they were a bunch of screenplays that I turned into short stories that I kind of put together. I put 4 of them in each of the books, Noir 1 and Noir 2. And How Cocktails Got Their Name, that's actually an interesting story if you have the time. I was lying in bed with my wife watching television, and there was a thing on about, how things got their names. And it was followed by a program that was about, it was like one of these food channel shows, and it was about cocktails. And my wife said to me, how did the word cocktails come about? And I said, I have no idea. She says, write a book about it. So I started doing research, and I found out that the names of cocktails, every one of them has a fascinating story. It's fantastic. I mean, even just the one for the margarita, there's like 5 women who say they are the margarita, that the margarita is named after.
Oh, that's fantastic. And like cocktails named Slippery, Between the Sheets, and oh my gosh, all those fun names. Well, we're almost out of time here, so I want to just tell everyone, thank you so much, Jerry Bader, for coming on the show. Please support his work. So you can support our podcast as well. And it will have all information in our summary, so you can find him. And Jerry, do you have a Facebook page? You're on LinkedIn, and do you have a Facebook page as well?
I do have a Facebook page, but I also have a website. It's mrpwebmedia.com/books.
MRP Media / MRP Media.
webmedia/books.
Webmedia/books. Thanks, everybody. Cheers. And definitely cheers to anyone drinking.